So we will go ahead and get started. Welcome, everybody. This is our brand new webinar, What is SASE? And yes, that is how you pronounce SASE, SASE. So we're going to have all sorts of fun, all sorts of sass for you today. Um, my name is Shane Caffrey. I am the marketing director for Lee Shanok Network Solutions. Joining me is David Gunther, one of our certified network technicians.
Hello.
And we have a few new folks on the call, a few old folks who have attended some previous events. So for those new folks, welcome. Lee Shanok is an IT company. We have offices in Phoenix and Tucson. And our primary goal is to help you stay connected safely and securely. So we do these monthly lunch and learn events. That are open to any Arizona company. We feel that improving security starts with knowledge. So that's why we're all here today. And of course, the other reason we are all here today is free food. We have Brianna here on the call. She will be sending out those Grubhub gift cards to everyone. Those are $20 Grubhub gift cards. We're doing attendance of the meeting, so must be present to receive. And then you can go ahead and place an order after the event and enjoy some lunch on us. Well, I say on us, but this webinar is sponsored by our partners at Cisco. So we're big fans of Cisco, but what we try to make sure to do in these presentations is not be total shills for whoever is sponsoring us, right? This isn't a sales presentation first. This is an educational presentation first. Now, with the Cisco sponsorship, what you're going to see in the presentation, the examples of the SASE technology that we're going to be talking about are all going to be from Cisco. It's going to be Cisco's flavor of SASE. Um, but just know that Cisco is one of several vendors who is offering these solutions. We're going to talk a little bit more higher level. We're going to dive a little bit deeper into the Cisco solutions, but this will not be a full-on sales presentation. We're going to keep this focused. One quick note before we jump in, there was some confusion. A lot of the folks who are on this call are IT professionals, right? This is our Solutions for IT Professionals series. So we have a little bit more technical information as opposed to our Common Worker series. One of my coworkers, when he was hearing me rehearse this presentation yesterday, was asking me about SaaS, right? SaaS versus SASE. He was thinking maybe this was just a cutesy way that we were talking about software as a service. So I want to make that distinction clear at the top. SASE and SaaS sound the same, but they are not particularly related. But without further ado, let's go ahead and jump in with a quick icebreaker activity. So if you could scan this QR code, we're trying a new polling platform, a new engagement platform here. So go ahead and scan this QR code with your phone. I'm going to stop sharing this presentation and pop open the engagement application Slido. The QR code will be there if you're fumbling for your phone now. And I'll pull up. Okay, that should be live, and let me go ahead and share. Who, in your opinion, is the sassiest celebrity? There we are. Ooh, Todd Chrisley. Mariah Carey. Oh, that's a perfect one. Groucho Marx, very good. Let's see, I'm getting my answer in here too. Paris Hilton, not bad, not bad, not bad, not bad. Elon Musk, a little more relevant these days. Oh boy, it's clear I don't know how to spell her name. Oh, okay, getting political here. I guess you could consider her a celebrity. My answer here Rihanna. Did I spell that right though? I don't know if I spelled that right.
I think so.
And King Sassy, hopefully that's going to be me or David here by the end. You're going to be thinking of us as King Sassy. Okay, thank you all for participating. This is how we're also checking to make sure that folks are on the call and participating with us. So we have a few more here. If you could please participate. The upcoming ones are a lot more relevant. So I go ahead and stop that. And I'll jump right back into our presentation. And there we go. Like I said, this is brand new, so working out the how-tos. Okay, so let's get started into the real content, right? So why are we talking about this, right? Why was SASE coined? Why was the theory behind SASE created? It's a relatively new term. It was coined in 2019 by the Gartner Group. That's just 3 years ago. So why did they feel the need to theorize this security framework? Well, the typical modern computing environment is really, really distributed, right? So it's no longer the case where everybody's coming into the office, connecting to their PC at their desk to the on-site data center and accessing all the applications that are hosted in that data center, right? It's a lot more dispersed than that, where we have people who are work from home, right? David and I are both working from home. Brianna, you can see, is there in the office. We have roaming workers, right? They're traveling, accessing applications, accessing company data on their phones, public clouds, private clouds, and it gets really messy trying to apply consistent security policies across the entire organization, making sure that you cover all of your clouds, all of your devices, all of your people. You still need to protect the core network, right? But what if people are connecting to a SaaS application outside of the network, right? Is that internet traffic protected? So this distributed environment creates some security challenges. All of us are somewhere on this migration between the traditional IT environment to the more modern environment, right? That more distributed environment. So where you fall on these scales is going to be unique. Every cloud journey is totally unique, but are you more focused on the data center, or have you gone completely cloud? Do you have a more traditional WAN connecting your locations, or have you upgraded to SD-WAN? Maybe you have development in your organization. Are you focused on the server client model, the mobile model, right? So everybody's somewhere on this journey, and most people are moving from left to right. They're going from traditional to modern in most instances. That's creating a lot of security challenges, right? These stats are from a report. I believe it was the Verizon network security report from 2021. But 42% of SaaS users are suffering poor performance. 64% of IT professionals, IT security professionals, are saying that network security at the edge is more difficult. This is a really big one, and I want this one to stick out to you. 85% of roaming users are believed to violate their organization's VPN policy. So a roaming user could be somebody working from home, it could be a traveling salesperson, it could be somebody who jumps from site to site to site. If you have a policy in your organization that says when you connect to our applications, you have to be connected to the VPN, 85% of IT professionals or IT professionals believe that 85% of these users are bypassing that VPN in some way. And that creates some security risks, right? And then there's a big spike in attacks since COVID-19. That's not particularly new to the IT field. So network and security teams, basically, we're just trying to connect users to applications securely, and we're also not trying to get in their way of productivity. So we have to cover these gaps, right? That really distributed model has a lot of gaps. There's inconsistent policy. So whether somebody's connected on the company network versus not connected to the company network, it can be difficult to enforce those same policies across the board. And it can be difficult to verify the identity of users, right? That's a really important component to make sure that the person who is accessing your company data is the person is who they say they are, right? If you have an internet application, uh, it can be difficult to know, or anybody can try to log into that, right? If there's a web portal, they just point their browser to that URL and they can try to log in. Some other stats on this shift, right? 86% of organizations are consolidating vendors to reduce complexity. We're going to look at that in just a second. 50% of IT pros think there are too many security tools to manage, but 86% of CISOs say cloud security has increased visibility into the network. So that's a good thing, right? We're moving to the cloud. We have this broader visibility. The key focus here, these 5 things that I hope you take away from this slide, it's about improving productivity and experience, ensuring security, minimizing risks, those go hand in hand, reducing complexity, and improving overall operations. This is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about complexity, right? So we have these problems. We have this distributed model that's difficult to secure. So every tech company and their brother's little sister's tech company has created some kind of solution that fits in a little piece of the pie. And if you're responsible for securing your network, you have to somehow sift through all of these vendors and start picking each individual tool to protect your individual leg of the network or your individual piece. And it's just impossible, right? There's no way anybody could sift through all of these vendors. So we start, reducing to our reduced set of, okay, here's who we like, or we're going to hire a company like Lee Shanak who has their own special vendors and they can just tell us what to buy. But it's too complex and there's too many tools and they all say they integrate with each other, but how well do they really integrate? Really, sometimes they play nicer than others. It can be a really big mess. So it requires this shift to a new form of security. So the traditional model is more of the point solution, right? You have your point, you create the perimeter around it. The newer model, the SASE framework is more about creating a mesh, right? And I should say before I get too much deeper into it, right? I'm not here to try to sell you on SASE or say that SASE is what you need to adopt because it's still relatively new. What I'm here to do is educate you on what this is and go a little bit deeper beyond the buzzwords. So if I'm sounding really hyped on SASE, it's because there are some really good ideas in there. But please know that this presentation isn't about twisting your arm into saying every environment with a cloud needs to adopt SASE. But you can see where the point is evolving more into that mesh solution. So how do we do this, right? This is where SASE comes in. It's a framework-based approach. It's about combining security and the network. And there's a few different frameworks that go hand in hand here. We're going to be looking at Zero Trust a little bit, SASE especially. We're not going to be taking a deep dive into XDR in this presentation. We have a separate webinar all about XDR that goes really deep into what that is and how that works. So we're going to be focusing more on these two. But the idea is it's this framework, it's this architecture that's about protecting all these users, devices, the network, all the way up to your applications and your data, regardless of where they're stored, where they're accessed, and applying those consistent policies across the board. So now you have listened to me talk and dry my mouth out. I'm going to kick it over to David to talk what is SASE.
Gotcha. Yeah, so let's get into the basics of what this is. So I'm going to read this obnoxiously long definition, and I apologize in advance, but then we'll get into what it means. So, Secure Access Service Edge, or SASE, delivers converged network and security as a service capabilities, including SD-WAN, SWG, CASB, NGFW, and Zero Trust Network Access, CTNA, and we will get into all those other acronyms in a bit. SASE supports branch office, remote worker, and on-premises secure access use cases. It is primarily delivered as a service and enables zero-trust access based on the identity of device or entity combined with real-time context and security and compliance policies. So, what does that all mean? Uh, yes, great, but what is SASE? So it's a framework. It's designed to combine a lot of different technologies and products. And the nice thing about SASE is it is generally a single vendor that is providing all of those. So you know the integration is built in, as opposed to, like a CM where you're, hoping that it all will plug in nice and neatly. It's designed to achieve three key goals. You're trying to reduce your complexity, improve your network performance. It's good to have all hardware and software that works well together and doesn't, clash in those places where it occasionally overlaps, as we know security software does. And improve security outcomes for hybrid work, since we know not everybody's in the office and connecting directly through your network. And it does this by converging your network connectivity, your security, and your identity functions. So those are the three big kind of key points there. Is, the security, the identity, making sure that all of your employees are super verified and connected to either your company network or through some other layers of security to connect directly to cloud applications and things like that. All righty. And then we got a knowledge check right now that should be up if you've still got the page opened. You can stay on there. If not, scan the QR code. And Shane is hopping.
Okay. Yes, let me get that rolling.
All right, so it should be up on the poll right now. Which of the following is not a goal of SASE?
So far, so good. Let's see. We have one person, two people. Yep, David just went over the three goals of SASE. And if you're having any issues, the QR code here on the screen will also take you there. If you did close out, that'll join in. So just respectfully, please participate. This is how we're gauging our engagement. We're gauging the participation and attendance at today's webinar. So we have a few people in. I'll give it another 30 seconds for folks to join in. Okay. Okay. Oh, we've got a 50-50 split now.
Oh, good. I like when it gets spicy. Or sassy, even.
Okay. Get your answers in. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh, okay. One last jump, pushing easier sharing of internal resources. That is the correct answer. Why isn't it improving network performance? And that's a really good question, right? A lot of times when we think about adding security layers, like we're installing a firewall, right? That is to the detriment of network performance. But the idea behind SASE is we're going to see in a little bit more detail. It's about both the network and security working as one. So SASE is it's about trying to improve network performance and improving security. And then we talked about reducing that complexity, right? Trying to figure out one vendor as opposed to 110 different vendors. Okay, thank you so much. Let me go ahead and stop that and get us right back into the presentation. Okay, so SASE architecture, right? We're going to take a little bit of a deeper dive into the framework, how it's built. So this is the general architecture. This is going to be basically consistent across any SASE vendor, right? any company that you're buying from is going to have these kind of
Hey
five
Shane,
key.
you're
Yes.
you're still sharing the QR code.
Oh, thank you, David. Let me try that again. How's that looking? Hey, hey. So these five key components, right? Um, they're going to be consistent across the board. So that those pieces, and we're going to take a deeper dive into each of these pieces: SD-WAN, SWG, Secure Web Gateway, Cloud Access Security Broker, Firewall as a Service or Cloud Delivered Firewall, and Zero Trust. There's also 6 points around here that are all important in the SASE architecture. So it's got to be flexible, right? It has to scale up, it has to scale down very easily with changes in your organization. Supporting all the devices, supporting all the agents, supporting everything, regardless of who's using what to connect to your resources. Microservices-based architecture. Basically, what that means is it's a lot of small, tiny tools all added up together to create this framework, right? David mentioned earlier, SASE isn't a product, not off the shelf. You can't go call up and say, I want to buy SASE, right? The SASE execution as it exists currently is a bundle of security and network products all together into one to give you this overall framework. And another thing we've been mentioning, we've been talking it as a good thing, consolidation through a single vendor. But there's a flip side to that too, right? Because it's consolidated into one single vendor, everything talks, everything's easier to manage. But on the flip side, you have to make sure that you're buying the right product for your organization. You want to pick the right vendor. You have to do a lot more research to make sure that you're getting involved with the organization that's best going to support your needs. Um, because consolidation through a single vendor, right? If you're in the vendor's perspective, that sounds really, really good. Oh, hey, instead of selling this one security product, I can sell them my whole security stack and just call it SASE. And it has to be through a single vendor in order to be considered SASE. You can't piece this thing together. So every security company is developing or has developed a SASE solution because they want that lion's share, that bulk of your security spend. So that's why it's really important to be careful with SASE. It's important to separate sort of the marketing hype from what the actual solution does, and making sure that it's actually a good fit for your organization. So we're here to kind of help you weed through that, and start thinking about it as a framework. This is a generalized view of the approach, right? It's the worker's location, right? They could be remote, they could be on site, they could be in the headquarters, they could be in a branch location. They connect, they go through the SASE framework essentially, right? It's a combination of the network, SD-WAN, and security. They're connected by a middle mile optimizer. Once they go through that, then they are connected to their end destination, which is whatever cloud, wherever they are trying to access the application or data, wherever that's stored. So that could be your private cloud, that could be over the internet, could be a SaaS application. Um, this is a little bit, excuse me, this is a little bit of a deeper dive into what that approach looks like. I'm not going to go through every single piece, but you can see that it's device agnostic, right? IoT is a part of SASE, right? Regardless of the device, whatever is connecting to that data at the end location, it all has to go through this combination, this SASE framework. And the individual pieces of the SASE framework are here for you to take a look at. And then the framework, right? So we've been talking like this is the architecture, these are the pieces. These I would call the three key pillars of SASE, right? It's a combination of connectivity via SD-WAN, security, which is primarily supported by the Secure Web Gateway. There's other pieces that support it, and identity. And it's zero trust. So some folks say SASE is a subset of zero trust. I've seen others say zero trust is a piece of SASE. The key to take away is zero trust identity is really important when you're accessing those cloud applications. And across it all, visibility, right? And policy, making sure those policies are applied consistently all the way across, making sure you as the IT person can see everything that needs to be seen. And then here I mentioned this is Cisco sponsored, so this is the Cisco framework, right? It's connectivity, the SD-WAN through Meraki, security through Cisco Umbrella, that's their cloud security platform, and identity through Duo and AnyConnect. We're going to look at those examples in more detail. We're not going to be talking about the Thousand Eyes visibility today. That's really designed more for the larger organizations bordering on enterprise. Uh, our customer base, our clientele is, and our audience here is more on the SMB side. So we're only going to be focusing on those three, and then that visibility piece we can talk about in more detail in a one-on-one, but it'd be too much to get into today. So the first part, SD-WAN, going to kick it back over to David.
Yes. All right. So let's talk about the components here. There's a lot of different ways to connect that have been used, but this is kind of the new model of the SD-WAN. So it's meant to be centralized, it's meant to be organized. The Meraki is kind of the Cisco flavor of this, and if you're a client of ours, you probably have one of those installed at each of your branches or sites. That's how we've traditionally deployed those. But it provides for basically VPN tunnels from any physical locations to each other. And then, of course, all of those can access cloud applications through whatever broadband or direct access there. And the MPLS option, of course, there is sort of being phased out as things go on for more modern types of connections. But yeah, so we want to be able to let your users connect directly to the cloud, but also still have that sort of security as long as they're in any work site that is connected to the central location. And these are all the cloud managed devices as well, is the cool thing. So they can be accessed and managed and monitored from any location by the IT company that is managing the whole network. So yeah, so the internet connects directly to the cloud applications, so you don't have to worry about being tunneled or crunched down there, rather than having to force everything through the data center as was traditionally done before. We want to get the speed, we want to get those direct connections, and we still want to have the security overlay over that, and of course the monitoring. Right. And so the software component of the SD-WAN routes traffic based on your business priorities. So it has the ability to figure out what type of traffic is going through and route it, so you can do QoS on your VoIP calls, your payment processing, and still have your security rules enforced over everything. Flexibility, of course, is another big component of that. You need to be able to add a branch at any time just by deploying, a security appliance. You can route all traffic at that branch through that. Make sure the connection to your central location is, maintained and kept up, but also that they can access a lot of direct internet connections and route that traffic through. So yeah, you should be able to add locations, update your policies, and add applications very quickly and easily. And a lot of times those security appliances can be pre-programmed, and then just basically sent out to the site and plugged in. It's as simple as that. And then everything, of course, should be centrally managed so that those policies are deployed evenly across all things, although there can be some individual management on sites depending on those specific locations' needs. Yes, and then, of course, the Merakis, what I've mentioned previously. So yeah, the Meraki MX devices, they've got your next-gen firewall, they've got your intrusion detection and prevention capabilities. Two of them, when they're connected over the internet, they make that VPN tunnel automatically so that you don't have to worry about a lot of programming to set that up. Zero-touch provisioning, centralized management. A lot of the times you apply the license and it'll know what your configurations that you need for that based on the network that you're joining it to are, and just pull that all automatically right off the Meraki cloud. So yeah, that's why reputation there. There's a reason why their leading Merakis are doing very well, and that's because they are super simple to deploy and then also just easy to manage, and have all of those wonderful features built in that can be set up very quickly.
Okay, another knowledge check for you. Select the primary 5 components of SASE. So if you exited, go ahead and scan the QR code. If you're still in there, that's going to be up shortly. Got to reset the point where we tested and David got the right answer. Okay, here we go. So this is a multiple selection. So there's 7 options here. Go ahead and pick the 5 key components of SASE architecture. Okay, we got a couple answers in. Here we go. Okay. Okay. We got some popular and not popular choices here. Okay, I think we've got a good majority of people in here. So everybody picked SD-WAN. That's correct. David just talked about that. Everybody talked about firewall as a service. That's the cloud delivered firewall. We're going to look more detail in that in just a second. Correct. Zero trust. That's correct. Okay, now here's where we start to get off kilter a little bit. So SWG, that is the secure web gateway. We haven't talked about that yet. We're about to. That is correct. Public cloud, that tripped up a few of you. That is not a piece of SASE architecture. Now, you might have a lot of applications living on the public cloud, and you need to securely connect to those. You need your employees to connect to those safely. But the public cloud itself is not part of the architecture. CASB, that is the Cloud Access Security Broker. That is the last piece. That is the 5th and final. And then that is just thrown in there as a dummy answer, or I shouldn't say dummy answer, but throw you off the trail. So overall, pretty good. And some of these we hadn't even talked about yet, so I'm impressed. So we're going to jump into these cloud security pieces here, and I'll go ahead and actually share properly this time. We'll stop that and we'll start this. Okay. So the components of SASE, this is the cloud security piece. Those 3 sort of central pillars, those 3 circles, this is the middle circle. Let me stop really quick here and just open it up. If anybody has any questions, I didn't mention this at the top. We're going to have the opportunity to ask questions at the end, as we always do. But if you have any questions as we're going through, please feel free to put those in the chat. Those are going to come to me. David's going to see those as well. And we'll try to get those answered either as we go along or at the end for you. Until then, cloud security. So we're going to talk about the secure web gateway first, that SWG piece. So apps in the data center are accessed via a VPN, typically, right? But apps accessed over the cloud may disconnect the VPN session, leaving users exposed. I think that's a polite way of saying it. My theory of how most people actually interact is they're not connecting to the VPN to begin with to access those cloud hosted applications. They're just going straight there via a direct internet connection. And when they're going straight there with a direct internet connection, right, they're not being routed through your network. They're not, the users aren't sitting at home getting routed through your firewall on your premises. They're just using their direct internet connection, whether that's mobily on the go at their home. So this secure web gateway, this is a way to protect that web traffic that circumvents the VPN or goes when the VPN is disconnected. Um, it does a lot of web-based threats. One thing I want to mention and point out is web content filtering. This is a really popular option that we have enabled on our clients who are using the Meraki firewalls, right? So the web content filtering on the physical firewall may overlap with the web content filtering that you're using in your cloud security solution. So this is where it's important to understand the functionality and exactly what you're getting. In your particular environment, if you're trying to adopt this SASE framework, you might say, okay, we're going to disable web content filtering on the firewalls, but apply it via our cloud solution because the cloud solution will apply it to everybody, right, regardless of where they are. The web content filtering via the firewall will only really be protecting people who are connected at the physical location or who are VPNing into your network. So this is one of those things to make sure that you understand, because there's some overlap in these products. So it's important to make sure that if that overlap does occur, that it's okay, that it's working, you're not paying too much for duplicate functionality, and you're not degrading performance because the two pieces are fighting each other. So that's the secure web gateway. All of the non-web traffic that is done outside of the network is going to be covered by the firewall as a service or a cloud delivered firewall. Uh, there's kind of a traffic flow, and these pieces are talking to each other, right? The SWG and the firewall. It's going to forward traffic via the IPsec tunnel to the cloud. First, it's going to resolve DNS security. It's going to allow or block based on those policies. Then the firewall is going to inspect the traffic. If traffic is allowed over ports 80 or 443, that's HTTP, HTTPS, so that's web traffic. All that web traffic is getting sent to the secure web gateway. All that other traffic is inspected here at the firewall level. So the SWG does its policies, the firewall does its policies, and that allowed traffic egresses through the NAT. So that's a little bit more of a technical explanation of what's going on with these two pieces working together, inspecting that traffic, whether it's going over the web or it's non-web traffic. And then the last cloud security piece that we're going to take a look at is the Cloud Access Security Broker, the CASB. And the best description of this that I found when I was doing research for this presentation is you can consider that the CASB as the sheriff that is going to enforce your cloud security policies. So your sheriff, right, he lives right in between your organization and your cloud. And he's going to be enforcing whatever policies that you have in place. So your authentication policies, single sign-on encryption, so on and so forth. And your sheriff is also going to give you visibility on what cloud applications are being accessed. So one of the key functionalities, the key benefits of a cloud access security broker is shining a light on shadow IT. And as a reminder for anybody on the call, shadow IT is any IT that is being used that hasn't been approved or isn't really known to the official IT department. So the most common example of this, or I shouldn't say common, but one example of this, I'm the marketing department, right? So I need a CRM really badly to make sure that I'm keeping up with contact on all of our customers. So I go out and I purchase a CRM solution. I subscribe to Salesforce or whatever. But all along the process, I never involve IT. I just take it as me, the head of marketing. I'm going out and buying this solution. Well, now all of a sudden I'm uploading a bunch of company data into this application that IT has no ideas about. My whole department is using it without IT being aware. So policies might not be enforced properly. because I, as the marketing department, I don't care if I'm following IT's rules, right? I care if my CRM is working properly. IT cares if all of that data is at risk. So your cloud access security broker is the sheriff, right? He's going to tell on me and say, hey, Shane over here, he's using Salesforce. Did you guys know you had Salesforce? Yeah, well, the marketing department has Salesforce. Then you can rein it in. You can make sure that everything is uh, up to date, that shadow IT gets a spotlight shined on it, and you can take the appropriate action. So why Umbrella? You may have seen the little logo in the corner. So Umbrella is the Cisco cloud security solution, right? And this is the Cisco sponsored presentation. But just like why we like Meraki, I'm going to talk through a little bit about why we like Umbrella. Umbrella is sort of the best in breed in terms of detection rates. So the previous IDC independent study found that it detected 90.41% of malware or malicious traffic. The next closest was 13% behind that 90%. It's powered by Talos, and Talos is a threat hunting organization. It's a bunch of really smart cybersecurity professionals who do basically nothing except for threat research. It's the biggest private threat research organization in the world. The only threat hunting organization that is bigger is the NSA, the National Security Agency. So it is the gold standard for threat research. And of course, they use that research to update all their products, push out firewall policies to say, hey, this is what to look out for. This is the newest threat. It's relatively easy to use, especially if you have familiarity with some of those Cisco dashboards. Ease of use and Cisco don't always go hand in hand. I think everybody at least Shinnok would be the first to say UX hasn't always been the priority, but this isn't too bad, and it's scalable. It's reasonably priced. You get a lot of functionality. You get a lot of bang for your buck, and it's easy to scale up, scale down, cover everybody who you need to be covered. Okay, sales hat off. Kick it back over to David for zero trust and identity and suspicious Smurf.
Yes. Alrighty. So zero trust, I like to think of as philosophy for security. But yeah, it means a lot of different things to different people. Segmentation, it's your endpoint security, your firewall, your zero trust access, your identity. That it's many different things, and the philosophy kind of encompasses all of those. But I like to think of it as kind of making sure that everyone is vetted, everyone has access to the least amount of things that they should to do their job, and that everybody has those security policies and protections implemented. So, core principles: never assume trust, always verify, and that least privilege, which is my favorite thing to enforce. So yeah, you need to make sure that your employees are who they say they are when they're logging in, that there's layers of protection in place to do that. So yeah, right here we've got our authentication. So the user sees their multi-factor authentication. In this case, we're using the Duo flavor because that is Cisco's, and that's the one we use for most of our clients. So behind the scenes, there are a lot of authentication factors going on. We call it multi-factor authentication rather than two-factor authentication because there's more going on than just your password and your little pop-up or your code. So down there, we've got all the authentication methods: your push, your soft token, your SMS, phone calls, USBs, wearables, biometrics, your tokens. All of those are a way to provide one other method, but there's also locations, device IDs, behaviors, your times, other signals. So yeah, where you are, what you're doing. Do these all match your normal behavior patterns? You know, if you always log in at 8 and log off at 5 every day to work, if you suddenly log in at midnight, you might see that there's more challenges and things coming in, and that is that multi-factor stuff, analyzing your behavior. And then if you log in from somewhere different than where you usually do, that's going to challenge you again. So these are the kind of things that this monitors and does behind the scenes to keep that identity and authentication so sacred. All right. So, AnyConnect is the VPN option. And there's actually a lot more behind AnyConnect than just VPN. Um, Here we've usually just put on the VPN tunnel side, but the Cisco umbrella feature is actually built into the application. And if with a subscription to those features, that can all be activated on any endpoint that AnyConnect is installed on. And that provides those extra security layers, whether or not a user is connected directly to the VPN. If they're hitting the cloud directly, if they're hitting web resources and things like that, we want that protection to be on there and working. And the protections and the visibility. So there's some traffic monitoring and things like that going on that IT can keep an eye on, and the protection happening for those secure connections to cloud data and things like that. Because we know not everybody connects to the VPN every single time they're doing work. All right.
Okay, this is the very last knowledge check, last question, and this is maybe the trickiest one. Why do you need a cloud firewall if you already have one on premises? So let me get that fired up. Okay, that should be live.
All right.
Now I can share. Okay, I see most people have answered. There's still a few out there from last time. If you're thinking about it, very good. Keep going. I'll leave it another 10 seconds or so. There we go. Okay. Oh, even better. Even better. Okay, these answers are looking good. Yes. So it looks like the group logic won out today. That is correct. In SASE, remote traffic is not always routed to your physical locations. So very good, right? When we're talking about this, we're not always talking about VPNing into the physical location network and then accessing it there. At Leashanok, a lot of our clients are set up that way, and that is a fine way to be set up. But when we're looking at these more modern, more distributed environments, you need to protect the people who aren't necessarily being tunneled, and you don't always want to force everybody. It may not be efficient when you reach a certain scale to force everybody to tunnel into that location at your data center. Hardware-based firewalls are becoming obsolete. I can see why maybe you would think that. Maybe that would be an attractive answer. But at least at this time, hardware-based firewalls are still very strong. The Meraki devices that we've been talking about, right? We really like those. They work very, very well. They're not becoming obsolete. Maybe you could argue in a all physical hardware is becoming obsolete. If you hold that philosophy, you could say that. But at least in terms of this question, that's not really what we're aiming for. And then it looks like Microsoft 365 and other SaaS apps require a cloud firewall to connect. No, that isn't true. You can anybody basically with an internet connection and who can pass the authentication piece can connect to those SaaS applications. Very good. Very good. Okay. So that's the last one. So we are getting into the home stretch here. So SASE use cases. And here is a SASE Conan O'Brien. He is the man who gives me hope that unattractive redheads can still make it in television. So Hollywood, here I come. Uh, SASE is a good security framework for organizations that are planning to migrate more to the cloud over time, organizations that have already migrated partially or fully to the cloud. And when I say partially, right, that can be as simple as getting rid of your Exchange server and adopting Microsoft 365, right? That's often considered the gateway drug. Office 365 is the gateway drug to cloud migration. Well, we got rid of this one server. What else can we get rid of? Oh, that was easy. So the migration doesn't have to be substantial for SASE to be worth considering. Anybody with remote workers or roaming workers, if you have a traveling salespeople, if you have people who are visiting site to site to site to site, working from home, SASE is a good security framework. And if you have more than one location, right, different sites connecting that SD-WAN piece, that's huge in SASE, making sure that all of those connections are secure and efficient from a modern standpoint. It's not as good of a fit for organizations that are fully on premises and with zero plans to migrate to the cloud, right? Some organizations are like that. Very few today have every single thing living in an on-premises data center, but they do exist, right? Sometimes it's for compliance and security reasons. Sometimes it's just old school mentality, preferred to have everything in-house. If that's the case, then SASE not really a relevant framework because you're going to have everybody go through all of that to the direct to the data center. Very small organizations, and I'm talking about 10-person organizations, maybe 20 or smaller. SASE is a scalable solution, right? So those economies of scale start to take effect when you're a little bit bigger, right? A 50, 100-person organization on the SMB side. And depending on how tech heavy you are, maybe 20, 25 would be appropriate. But a really small organization, a one-person shop in their home, right? Obviously, SASE's not a necessary framework for you. 5-person organization, SASE's not the right fit. And if there's a full-on prohibition of remote work or work from anywhere, if you're still doing the old school mentality of everybody going into the office and logging in on their PC, that's the only way they ever work. That's rare for organizations, but it happens, right? My brother-in-law's department at Raytheon is like this, right? And for good reason, right? They have some really, really, really substantial security considerations when you're building missiles. So he kind of groans that everybody else gets to work from home, but he still has to go in. He's not allowed to do any work outside of his office. That's who it's not really a good fit for. And David's going to talk about limitations. We've talked a lot about the good pieces, but it's not perfect.
Right. SASE, like everything we talk about in these webinars, is not the magic silver bullet that solves all your problems. We haven't found that yet. When we do, we'll send you a quote. Don't worry. All right. So a single vendor is required for SASE. It's important to do thorough research there and pick the right one, obviously, because you're getting a lot of components and a lot of services from one vendor, and you want to make sure that all of those are right for your organization. Yeah, secondly, it's focused on external threats. It's kind of pushing the boundaries of that traditional network to cover a lot of extra endpoints and a lot of extra situations. But internal threats are still a risk. It doesn't quite do everything against those internal actors. I do think the zero trust mentality of that does a lot for those internal threats, but the rest of it's mostly focused on protection from the outside and securing those cloud connections. All right, and then SASE is also relatively new. There may not be complete solutions from certain vendors yet, so you want to make sure that when you're looking at vendors that they have fully developed all of the components of it that you want to implement. And then, yes, much of the SASE literature available is marketing hype. I feel like new technology, that is pretty much a given, that there's a lot of marketing hype around it. But yeah, you're going to find a lot of people going on about, the things you can achieve and not getting into the meat of it. So that's why we like to discuss, what comprises SASE, so you can check out each individual component when you're shopping and find the best one. Or when you're reaching out to your IT company and they're offering that solution, you want to make sure that the one that they offer fits your needs.
Okay, so I hope David and I have both been classy and sassy in this presentation. We're just going to wrap it up here. We'll have some time for questions at the very end, but before we wrap up, these are, I'll call these my personal thoughts, or David and I share these thoughts. Um, we don't represent Cisco, all rights reserved, limited liability, don't sue us, don't sue us. But our takeaway in doing all of this research, SASE is an evolution of security technology. It's not a revolution that some vendors might like to tout that it is. David mentioned it's not a silver bullet, right? But it is a really, really good framework. It's a good way of thinking about work from anywhere security, right? It's putting that mesh over everybody and applying those consistent policies. It's a really good way to think about that, and getting away from the more traditional, here's my network, here's my perimeter, everybody outside the perimeter is bad, everybody inside is good. SASE takes a more modern view. It reflects how we work today. The last piece is enterprises are adopting SASE, right? These really big companies, they're adopting it pretty quickly, much quicker than was initially anticipated. There was some initial calculations of 40% of enterprises by 2025. They're way ahead of schedule for that. So SMBs, right, the market that we're talking to today, they're predicted to follow suit with an SMB flavor of SASE, which is what we've been talking about, much sooner than was originally predicted. Uh, the last thing I wanted to share was that most of our clients are 2/3 of the way to SASE anyway. Some of you on this call are clients, some of you aren't. And those clients that we have may or may not have this exact, but a good portion of our clients have some of our favorite combination, which is Meraki plus Duo. And the missing piece, what we don't have with a lot of our clients, is that cloud security piece, that Cisco umbrella. So we're still doing primarily the traditional approach, right? We're tunneling all remote users in through a VPN connected to an on-site network. Um, but we know that that's not covering everybody. That's not covering all of the behavior that is typical. So if SASE, if you're considering it, if you want to learn more, if you just want to talk about cloud security in general, we offer a free cloud security consultation that is at leeshanok.com/contact. We would be happy to talk with you more. This isn't it's not a sales push. It's literally just taking a look at your environment and talking about here's what you have, here's what you could be doing better, here's what we would recommend. We would love to have those conversations with you if you think those would be worthwhile for your organization. We're going to be sending out certificates of completion. That is standard for all of these webinars for the folks who are joining us. If this is your first webinar with us, look out for an email from me. It'll have your name on there and the appropriate webinar. I guess John William Sparks was just somebody I really wanted to feature today. With that, we are all done. Thank you so much for your time and attention. At this point, I'd like to invite you to unmute yourselves, head into the chat, and ask us any questions. Thank you, Joy. Hope you found it valuable. If you're still thinking, formulating any questions, Brianna, I believe you sent all the Grubhub gift cards out, or you're about to.
I got those sent out to everyone who joined us today, so you should be able to get your lunch ordered shortly.
Excellent, excellent. If you have any issues, that events@leeshanok.com is the best email to reach both David and I. Most of you have my email address as well. Feel free to reach out directly. I have a hard time believing that we answered every possible question that everyone on this call could possibly have. But if there are no questions, of course, you can approach us later. Okay, well, if there are no questions, then we will go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you all again. Much appreciated. Keep an eye out. We do these every single month, so keep an eye out for our next invite. I believe the next one is going to focus on physical security, so you don't want to miss it. Keep an eye on your inboxes. Thanks again. We will talk to you later.
Thanks.
Bye, everybody.